What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, UFC Long Island certainly delivered. There were some amazing fights and awesome finishes on the card, but I think we should start things off by talking about the unfortunate ending that was the main event. Obviously, we saw Brian Ortega's shoulder pop out of joint. Yair Rodríguez immediately came to his aid. There was a nice friendship between the two, but ultimately the fight wasn't what we had hoped it would be.
No, that's for sure. And on ABC, when you're in front of all these new people that are potential new fans coming along, you really want to give them a show of progression that UFC has come a long way. And I feel like with some of the friendliness that we saw within the cage, you had Michelle Waterson tap, even though the ref and the cameras didn't really catch it, she still admitted it and everybody was cool about that. And then to see in the main event, Brian Ortega fall backwards and Yair not try to finish the job, which 9 out of 10 times is what fighters would go and do. He was went to check on him. So I felt like it was a good thing. Obviously that's not the kind of ending the UFC wanted, and people want fireworks in their fights. But if you can take anything positive away from it, I think it's pretty cool that there was a lot of mutual respect and friendliness that we saw expressed inside the cage.
Well, you are certainly the master at finding silver linings, and I didn't even consider that. But back in the day, that was the biggest problem with mixed martial arts. That's why they adopted the rule set of the rounds and the weight classes and things like that, because a lot of people, including politicians and decision makers here in the United States, saw it as something that was too gruesome. It should be outlawed. It shouldn't be legal. And now you fast forward a couple of decades later and you're on ABC, which is one of the biggest, most prestigious sports networks, among other things, in the entire country. And so to see it come full circle is pretty amazing, actually. And given the fact that you saw great sportsmanship between Michelle Waterson conceding that she did, in fact, tap when Amanda Lemos let go of that guillotine and the referee didn't see it, all the way to Yair Rodríguez going from fighting his opponent, literally trying to hurt him, to checking on him just seconds after his shoulder pops out, does show that the sport's come a long way, and there are some gentlemen and fine ladies in the sport.
Yeah, and it did a lot for potential new fans and people that maybe weren't exposed to MMA before. But for us real fight fans, it did kind of feel like a dagger in the side that we didn't get to see a true number one contender emerge at featherweight. Yair Rodríguez has always been one of those guys that just a couple of fights, a couple of big wins away from being in a title fight. And I think that even though the fight didn't go his way, even though he did get his hand raised, he didn't get to show exactly how good he's gotten. I still feel like he is deserving of a title shot. And Brian Ortega, it's kind of unfortunate for him. He's not going to be going towards the title next. He's probably going to be heading for shoulder surgery, to be honest.
The third one, unfortunately, for him.
Yeah, that's just one of those things. This sport's brutal, and it happens. But I will say that even though that was a lackluster main event and, some of the other fights didn't quite live up to the hype, there were other fights and other performances on this card that certainly lived up to the hype and then exceeded expectations. And one that really sticks out to me, and I'm kind of, biased to this one, was Matt Schnell's performance in there. I mean, I got fight of the night with Matt Schnell and his opponent, Sumudarji, but also performance of the night. It's hard to not say that was a performance of the night, even though it happened in what I thought was the fight of the night.
Most definitely. And this is kind of cool for you in the sense that you got to do some work with Matt Schnell leading up to this fight. He spent some time at Main Street Muay Thai here in Houston, and you just happened to be a 125-pound southpaw, so you actually got to slide right in and do some sparring rounds, which I think is very cool. That fight was just insane. That was a true display of heart and determination that Matt Schnell said, admittedly, after the fight was over, I had to find that within myself. I didn't know I had that at times. I have doubted myself at times, and he became very relatable, and I think it's because a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people have dealt with self-doubt. They've had to pull themselves through hard times and deal with losses. Obviously he lost his mother and then lost a fight shortly thereafter. So it's kind of a very difficult thing to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, especially when somebody like Sumudarji is just elbowing you repeatedly in the face. I mean, I was screaming for, him to see that elbow coming, even though me screaming at the TV is not going to do anything. Obviously he was getting rocked by that elbow that was coming right over the top several times. I thought the referee was going to call the fight at one point, and then Matt was able to just absolutely get a perfectly timed takedown, which is exactly what you should do when you get rocked and hurt like that. And then he had the grappling advantage, and he made Sumudarji pay for the fact that he got that takedown, and the finish came shortly thereafter with a beautiful ground and pound sequence that led to the triangle finish. So congrats to Matt. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was awesome. And you talk about relatability. He is so relatable, and he's candid when he gets on the microphone. There's a reason he does does a lot of commentary outside of the UFC and has done things at the desk for Fox Sports and ESPN and stuff. He's a charismatic guy, knows how to present himself well, and is just an authentic human, right?
Yeah.
People really like that. Leading into this, I will say that it was a lot of fun to help somebody get ready for a major fight on the main card of a big event that's going to take place on ABC. And leading into this one, I thought this was the sharpest Matt's ever looked. His striking, everything, his timing, his speed was just on point, firing on all cylinders. And that goes to show you how tough Sumadarji is. He's one of those guys that is long for the division, fast, has really good striking, seems to know exactly what he's doing and the attacks that he wants to score in the rounds. And, to give Matt Schnell the type of trouble that he was giving him early in that fight speaks volumes. But this was a major fight for the flyweights. I feel like it put the flyweights on notice, and it was a perfect fight for an ABC card.
Yeah, no doubt. Matt Schnell's a real contender at flyweight, and that fight against Brandon Royval, I mean, there was times I thought he was going to actually win that fight and finish it himself. So he's certainly a force to be reckoned with at 125, and quite frankly, so is Sumadarji. I mean, he's got a powerful left hand and a short elbow over the top that everybody should be taking note of, because that can put anybody to sleep. It was just remarkable that it didn't put Matt to sleep or even put him on the ground. It was a true testament to his grit and his toughness. Another fight that was incredible was Charles Jourdain versus Shane Burgos. And this was very cool because Shane Burgos is a guy we know he's a banger. He likes to get in there and put on performances of the night. He likes to land big shots. He likes to keep the fight on the feet. However, it was very apparent that Jourdain had the striking and speed advantage once this fight got started. And then it was very cool to see Shane Burgos flip the script on us, so to speak, and switch it up to his grappling, taking the back of Jourdain in a couple of those rounds, making him ride him like a backpack a couple of times, getting him to the ground, threatening submissions. There were a couple of neck cranks and face cranks that some other people that aren't as tough as Charles probably would have tapped to. So congrats to Shane. And that was actually my fight of the night. Both guys did a great job.
Yeah, and Shane is for sure can't miss TV when you start to talk about people that are in the UFC. Maybe they're on the come up. His fights are always entertaining. I know a couple people were saying that he's now 7-0 inside of New York City when he's fighting there.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive. But it was also impressive because that was the last fight on his UFC contract. And they asked Dana about that. They said, after tonight's performance, or now last night's performance, did he do enough to maybe renegotiate a contract and stay with you guys? And Dana was like, of course, you're not going to get rid of that guy. I like putting him inside of New York so he can fight there and compete in front of people that know him and support him well. But to be honest, you could put him anywhere on the entire planet and people are going to be excited to see him on the card. And that's just because he brings an exciting fight style. And whether he wins or loses the fight, you're going to get crazy fireworks. You're going to get some fun striking. And it shows, as of yesterday, that you're going to get some pretty exciting grappling exchanges as well.
Absolutely. And starting off the main card, we had the ladies, Miesha Cupcake Tate making her debut at 125. And Lauren Murphy came back, after her loss to Valentina. She took some time off and she's back now. She looked pretty good yesterday against Miesha Tate. The strength and striking advantage were certainly apparent. She cruised herself to what I would consider to be a pretty sound victory, 30-27, and she looked pretty good in the process.
Yeah, and I think Miesha Tate is one of the fighters that is almost beyond fighting for a title, right? You've done that before. You've been to the top of that mountain. I think for Miesha Tate, she's kind of out of retirement, has a career resurgence. She might as well just go for the big fights. I don't think that she needs to be chasing the belt at 25 and then go, oh, you know what? I lost, so I'm going to go back up to 35, try to chase the title there. There's some big names. There's some big fights that she could probably get in both of those divisions, maybe even 45 if she decides she's done cutting weight. But I don't think that she should be, discouraged or anything like that. Yeah, you've been to the title before. You've gotten it. We don't need to see you go do that again. We just need to see you in some fun fights. She's always entertaining. Her skills may be getting sort of caught up with by the younger girls that are, running the divisions now. But I do believe that Miesha Tate has a place in the sport. Even though she's not getting her hand raised, she can probably still compete. And I think there's a lot of fun matchups for her, both at 25 and 35. And hell, if she doesn't want to cut any weight at all, she can probably go up to 45.
That's for sure. And I think UFC Long Island, all in all, even though obviously Lemos and Watterson was kind of a disappointment, and it was a good fight leading up to that, but it's just I take that back. It wasn't a disappointment. It was a weird ending. We'll
Yeah.
say that. It was good to see the sportsmanship with Michelle conceding the loss. It was good to see Amanda Lemos let go when the tap did come. But it was just whenever you have a weird ending like that, it kind of muddies the waters of the fight in general. And obviously the main event wasn't what we had hoped it would be. But at the same time, Yair Rodríguez was attacking an armbar. I'm not going to say that he was going to get an armbar over Brian T-City Ortega, the guy who's famous for submitting people off of his back with things like triangles and armbars, hence the name T-City. But it certainly was an attempt at a submission, and it was when Ortega pulled his arm out that the shoulder popped. So you have to give a little bit of credit to Yair for doing what he did. And Brian said in the post-fight interview, I was winning every minute of that fight. Everything was going exactly according to game plan. I didn't see it that way. I saw Yair Rodríguez winning the exchanges on the feet, and I saw Brian Ortega realize that and start to try to go to work at what he does best, which is on the ground. It's just unfortunate that it ended the way it did.
Yeah, it was a great afternoon of fights. You can never predict what's going to happen in this sport. That's why we all love it so much. And even though that was sort of a weird way to get a finish and get your hand raised, it still happened, and people can tune into the next one because you'll likely see a more conventional way to end. But everything from the ABC traditional blazers that all the UFC staff had on to the fights and finishes and bonuses handed out, I think it was a grand slam, and I was super happy for the card.
For sure. Guys, drop us a comment. Let us know, what did you think about the UFC on ABC? And do you like these afternoon cards or do you prefer the evening? Guys, if you're new here, we talk all things combat sports. So if that's your jam, we appreciate a subscription to the channel and a like on this video. We'll see you next time.
Peace.